I don't know if I should do background music for my videos or not. So inside of the description of this video and my future videos will be a link to a music video with no mid-roll ads on my second YouTube channel. 2 tabs. What's going on, everyone? Today I'm doing Ajax. The way I have built my Ajax is a little different than most people. I'll be going over the new changes to him in the new season. So if you're not aware of how the new changes work, you still want to watch the video. Ajax's passive, Event Horizon, gives you the secondary bar down here. Every time you cast ability, you get 35%, which is 1 level of the gauge. 1 level of the gauge gives you 5% cooldown. 2 levels gives you 10% cooldown. And 3 levels gives you 20% cooldown. So right now, any spell I cast would have a 20% less cooldown on it, like Hypercube. If you're wondering if it shows in your stats, 0.07, 0.12. An enhanced bubble looks white, so if you see a bubble from Ajax, it is either white is enhanced and yellow is not enhanced. The first ability, Orbit Barrier. Orbit Barrier is just a barrier in front of you. You can shoot through it. It prevents damage from coming in to your side and reflects damage whenever an enemy deals damage to it. There is a build that you could build into this and make it deal a whole bunch of damage. I chose to build around the bubble. The stats from Orbit Barrier are based off of Ajax's stats at a 200%, a 106% of his defense. Then everything else against the resistance is equal. The barrier lasts for 15 seconds, and all of the durations on all of his builds cannot be affected by duration on your build. So don't build into duration, with the exception of Void Walk, Enhanced Leap, which gives you extra shield. The Enhanced Leap is a jump. If you just cast it, you don't go that far. If you jump once and cast it, you go very far, and you go the farthest with a grapple jump. 578% skill power modifier, and it stuns your enemies, which is increased by duration. And you get continuous shield increase on an enhanced leap. The third ability, Expulsion, staggers the enemy, and the enhanced version has a larger range with more damage. The fourth ability, and what I have predicated my build on, is Hypercube. Hypercube is based off of 100% health, 200% defense, and 100% of the resistance. The enhanced version gives you 10% firearm attack increase, and everyone that stands inside of the bubble a 10% firearm attack increase. If you cast it, you will notice a green buff. This buff that looks like a Hypercube is the buff while standing in Hypercube and without Hypercube. So if you are unsure if a bubble is enhanced or not, if you stand in it, and you will get the buff. If it's not a buffed Hypercube, you will not get that buff. On to the reactor and the external components you could have. Currently, I am using the reactor that I have for Glay because I have not leveled up my Eternal Legacy, which is what I want to use with Ajax because it's a very good plant yourself here and shoot now gun. However, the external components I will keep. I have the HP support auxiliary power, and I have that because it gives you more on the hit points. The Polar Knight. The Polar Knight I have because it gives you hit points and it's easy to farm. Chill resistance and maximum MP is what I prefer on my sensor. Resistance and defense, and you see a trend of the resistances in all of my external components. What you should do if you're going to main Ajax is have multiple sets of components. Get a set of components that's basically stacked out for hit points and shields. Hit points, shields, and MP. And then when on the fight that you're going into, just pick the external component with resistance on it. Here we have what you could have on a reactor and your external components. For Ajax's external components, you want hit points on all stats because your Hypercube has hit points, not shields. Now, it depends on the way you're building Ajax. If you're building them the way I'm building Ajax, then you want HP on every external component. So you have to pick the external components that roll with HP on them. Then you want HP on your power, MP on your sensor, defense on your memory, and shield on your processor. Everything else is going to be, if you're fighting an enemy with elemental on it, you would want a resistance on the components that you're using. Otherwise, I would have MP recovery on the power unit, MP recovery on the sensor, MP recovery modifier on the memory, and shield recovery on the processor. For the reactor for Ajax, It depends on how you're building Ajax. If you're building him the way I'm building him, you definitely want cooldown on your reactor and probably skill range. My build does not run any range modules because I care about being in the hypercube, which is spacious enough for 4 people, unless I'm doing a defense, in which case I would spec for range, just to protect the defense. At the time of making this video, Ajax has 6 modules. The first one, Void Barrier. This allows you to bring your barrier with you instead of having something stationary. Massively increases the HP of the barrier and the defense. And looks pretty sick doing it. There's a lot of use cases for this, but it's kind of a fun build if you want to build into it. And now we have Matrix Recomputation. Matrix Recomputation modifies the expulsion into a different ability. The ability still does damage, although less at 475%, but now what it does is it increases defense by 50% and then increases shield by 250%. The 250% is additive, so it takes your shield, multiplies it by 2.5, then stacks it on top of Ajax's shields. It acts as a module that gives you 250% shield. Before, it was bugged, and then they fixed it, reworked it, and made it better, but also worse because they got rid of the bug. Now you only get this buff whenever it's an enhanced. If we put increased shield on, we have 800 before buff and 1600 after buff. This is the same amount of increase as before because it only acts as giving you that 319 at a 2.5% rate. So it's adding around 800 shields to the stack. If I slap modules on to increase my shields, it will still increase my shields by 800. If I use external components to increase my shields, it will multiply the external components. So build with this in mind. If you're building for shields, don't stack HP, stack shields. With Matrix Recomputation, it has a 10-second cooldown, but it only happens when you cast an enhanced spell. So you would want to build your entire set based around MP conservation, and cooldown. And then you would be unkillable when it comes to shields. Now, the good part is whenever you cast the enhanced buff, you get 250% of your max shields added to your shields. So if you are dying, you can cast Matrix Recomputation to save yourself by giving yourself more shield in the moment. You also obtain 5% shield recovery when you cast it. This does work for everyone in your party. So realistically, if you have a Kyle, you can massively increase the output of your Kyle. Currently, you can have about 4,000 shield on Kyle at base without the modules. So if you add Matrix Recomputation to that, that's an extra 12,000 shield on Kyle. 12,000 shield will net Kyle around 2 million damage in his additional fly boom. So if you're making a set of 1 Kyle, if you're making a party of 3 Kyles and 1 Ajax built for that, haha. But that is a different party comp that maybe I'll build for in the future. Sounds fun though. Then we have Void Charge. So this is actually really fun to use as a farming build instead of the implosion build that I showcase in the future. I did not make this, but it is fun. Basically, it has a cooldown of 12 seconds with 2 stacks. If you cast your last charge of Void Charge on the enhanced version, you get 1 Void Charge for free, which basically gives you 1 free Void Charge per stack of Void Charge. So if I go 2 ability, 3 ability, 4 ability, then use my last Void Charge, I get a free Void Charge, and then I can do it again. So Void Charge doesn't use that much mana. And then what it doesn't say here is it actually changes Expulsion. Right now, Expulsion has a cooldown of 15 seconds, 1200 damage, 1400 enhanced damage. If I change to Void Charge, the cooldown is decreased by 5 seconds. The damage is decreased slightly. You end up doing additional damage proportional to your defense. This is raw damage, though. This isn't stack damage, so you can't increase the damage of that. Ew. Useless. Is the proportional extra damage. Defense is 5,000. If I deal 3% of 5,000 damage, I get nothing. If I increase my defense to 100,000, I would only increase my damage to 3,000. Bad. Useless. That needs a buff, dev team. Either way, the double stack from Void Charge is actually super good. At best, this build could be a better discount bunny, And then we have Void Expulsion. Void Expulsion does is the opposite. It gives you 2 stacks of Void Expulsion and increases your sub attack. Enhanced version is even stronger at 200%. So first, my sub attack does 58,000 and now it's 98,000. Meh at best. However, I still use this module because it gives me 2 stacks of Void Expulsion. In addition to that, it removes 5 seconds of the cooldown. So you can become an ability spammer with Ajax. So I'll go over the farming build first. I have made a Void Expulsion build. Shot focus, yes, it increases your firearm attack, and honestly, the skill power modifier of all of these skills just doesn't matter. Then I run maximum cooldown with Nimble Fingers, MP conversion, and focus on non-attribute. Then I run 1 range module because of the explosion. I need it. A lot of hit points. Spear and shield for not only the extra defense, but also the extra skill power. And then auto immunity because bang for your buck. This is the best singular module that you can put on your character to stay alive. If you wanted to care more about your abilities' defenses, I would actually keep it as a flex spot for either the antibody or the elemental resistance modules. You basically cast your abilities whenever you need to, alternating between your second and third ability. You have very good AoE burst damage. Basically a discount bunny. But that's exactly what it is. You're a discount bunny. You'll never be as good as a bunny if you are an Ajax. Sorry, Ajaxes. You're never getting a 50% movement speed. That being said, you can actually get ahead of bunny using this ability and then rolling, then casting it again when you can, as long as you grapple, jump, and void walk. And then for the build that I actually use, I have 3 flex spots. This spot is reserved for Passionate Sponsor or Multi-Talented for more cooldown, depending on what I'm doing. I will run Passionate Sponsor if I'm doing party comps, as well as Shot Focus. And then this spot here is a flex spot for the Elemental Resistance modules. So if I am soloing the Swamp Walker, which honestly I would never do, because if I'm going to do that, I'm just going to play a different Descendant. But this is the build I would like to take into Void Intercepts, get your enhanced abilities up. And then this bubble here is pretty good to go for the entire match. Even the Swamp Walker isn't breaking this in 25 seconds, even with its ticking damage over time. Your entire party can stay inside of this bubble for the duration. And then in the 8.75 second cooldown that you have for the ability. So I did that to showcase an issue with things like this. You want to move locations because if you cast it, if anything's coming at you in that cast time, the split second, it will just come through because as soon as you cast another bubble, this bubble goes away. So now everyone would have to avoid this puddle inside of your bubble, but it goes away. And then after 25 seconds, it disappears anyway, because that's the duration. You'll see I did it again here, where I placed a bubble on where a missile was coming. So you want to be very careful of your bubble placement whenever you're Ajax and building for a party. But this bubble, even though that it's small, it can more than accommodate 4 people. So that's the Ajax build. This Ajax is specifically designed to make a bubble, use the bubble to proc Passionate Sponsor. You'll get a 75% increase to a firearm attack for 10 seconds, as long as you're buffing people. So every 10 seconds, you would have to buff someone. If you're in parties of pubs, this is going to be kind of difficult unless you cast your barrier every 10 seconds. But if you are in a party that knows what they're doing and you can communicate with them, just have someone go in and out of the barrier. It will reestablish the buff and proc Passionate Sponsor. So this might be difficult to do in pubs. That's why I have made a secondary slot. And this slot is for Enlightenment, Strong Mentality, or Multi-Talented. And basically you can use any combination with these 3 modules and the build will more or less work the same. All Multi-Talented does is lower your cooldowns. This, you can get your cooldown to a little less than 5 seconds. That is the Ajax build. Hope you like it. I'm doing Eugen next. I've already have Eugen build, so I just have to make the video. I do all my testing online on Twitch, so if you're interested in that, check out my Twitch. Sometimes I make videos on Twitch as well, just because, but I don't really think that kind of content would interest people. If you want to catch me on Twitch, in the description. You kids have fun. Have a sick day. Peace out. Also, sidebar note, the reason I haven't spent more time grinding a reactor is because I need to build Enduring Legacy for the reactor that I want on Ajax.